Okay. I can't see anyone else.
Well, it says we're live here. Okay.
Okay. Is there a way for me to see anyone else? Because I'm just looking at my own screen right now. Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Saloni.
And my name is Victoria.
We're from Science Fundamentals, and today we're going to be doing a really interesting demo on psychology. And yeah, without further ado, let's just get started. So we have fun little activities throughout, and we'll be explaining how psychology plays into that. So we'll ask really quickly, all of the males that are watching right now, any boys that are tuning in right now, just to close your eyes for a couple of seconds, and all of the girls watching, please look at this image right now. We'll give you guys a couple of seconds. And just note in your mind what you think this picture looks like. Okay, and now I want all of the girls to close their eyes, and the guys can open their eyes now. Okay. Now I want everyone to open their eyes, and can we quickly get some guesses, or can you guys tell us what you think you saw?
You can just type in the chat for like whatever you think the answer is.
Yeah. And Victoria, could you please monitor the chat because I can't really see it? Thanks. Do we have any?
So it looks like about half the answers are saying a person, a man, a guy. The other half are saying a mouse.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay, now we're gonna go back to, everyone can keep their eyes open, and I'm just gonna show you guys what the girls saw and what the boys saw. So this is what the girls saw, and I'm guessing you guys are probably saying that you were looking at the face of a man. This is what it looks like. And for the boys, they saw this image, which looks like a little mouse. And so when you look at it in this photo, for the guys that had seen the mouse with the little whiskers, they were primed to see a mouse, and girls were primed to see a man's face. So even though this is one image, you can see two different things based on what you had seen right before this. So what this means is that within our mind, we're always making up an image based on what we've seen before. So an example of this would be like, let's say you're at a grocery mart or a grocery shop, or somewhere that's not school. According to the way that our mind works and the way that we create representations, it would be much harder for you to recognize your teacher at a grocery shop versus if you were at a school. And same with your friends. It would be difficult, or it would be slightly difficult for you to recognize a friend at a grocery shop, let's say, versus at a playground. All right, so we're going to move on to some more ambiguous images. Okay, here are two right here. So can you see my cursor?
I can see your cursor. Can somebody confirm in the chat? Can you see where she's moving her mouse? Yes. Okay.
Okay, perfect. So just a quick test again. Can you guys tell us what you're seeing in this image?
I see a woman in the chat, a girl in a dress.
Girl in a dress. Okay. So for those of you that are seeing a girl, can you guys see if you can see it as an old lady? And for those of you that did see it as an old lady, could you guys try and see it as a girl, maybe, that's looking towards the other way. And if there's any teachers or parents that are tuning in right now, could you guys maybe let us know what you saw first? Did you see an old woman or did you see a young girl?
Oh, somebody's asking in the chat, where's the old lady? They're having some trouble seeing it.
Okay, so I'll point it out. So here would be the eye. So there's only one eye showing because it's the side view. This would be the nose, and then we have the mouth, the chin, and this is the hair. Did that help?
Yes, that did help.
Yeah, okay. So the reason I asked if any parents or teachers are tuning in right now, if they could tell us what they saw first, is because according to experiments and according to some research, they say that depending on the age and depending on like how old you are, it makes a difference what you see first. So younger people will tend to see the young girl first because it relates to them more. And elder people will tend to see the older woman first because it relates to their representation a lot more closely. If we look at the image on the right now, can you guys tell me what you see?
A horse, a seal,
Yeah.
a rabbit.
Interesting. Yeah, so so a horse, or it's actually I think supposed to be a donkey, but close guess, and a seal. So for those of you that saw the horse or the seal, I'm going to challenge you all to try and see it as the other animal. So if you saw the horse, try and see if you can see the seal, and if you saw the seal, try and see if you can see the donkey. And see if you can mentally flip between the two. So can you go from seeing the seal to the donkey? And if you were to close your eyes and now try to imagine the donkey and the seal and try to flip between it, can you do that? Can I get a yes or a no if you're able to do that?
Somebody's saying that this one is easier than the other one. They are finding it easier.
Yeah, because it's kind of simpler lines. Okay, so according to science, they say that it's very hard to kind of flip between the two if you just close your eyes and do it in your mind, but it can be easier to do it if someone points it out for you. And the reason for that is, I mean, there is no reason actually. They don't know why exactly that happens and why exactly it's why our visual representation or our mental representation, they're slightly different. But we do know that we group certain features together based on our experiences. So for those of you that started off by seeing the very top half, might have associated these two things as the eyes of the donkey and these as the ears. But those of you that kind of started looking at the bottom right, you would have maybe seen this as the face, and your mind kind of filled in the blanks and assumed that the rest of this was the seal's body. Yeah, so that's just how one way that our mind works. And okay, we're gonna move on to one more. I'm just gonna ask you guys to comment what you think you're seeing in this image. Can you see anything? And if so, tell us what it is.
Someone said they see a little kid.
A little kid, interesting.
One, someone doesn't see anything. A kid with a mouse. A skull.
You guys have great imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna show you what this is actually supposed to be. So this is supposed to be a cow. You guys see it now?
Yep, they're seeing the cow.
Yeah. So the reason this happens, so I know it looks really like weird if you don't have the whole outline. It looks like nothing. But if I switch back to this image, can you guys now see the cow without the outline?
Getting some yeses in the chat.
Yeah. Okay, and this is because our brain, it tends to group the lighter and the darker parts of the image together, and it kind of makes its own contrast. So if you notice, like if I go back to this image now, automatically your brain will try to put lines around the cow's face, and you get that image. But sometimes the rules that our brain uses to group things and to understand things, it can actually be, it can kind of fool you almost. And so we'll see that in this next image. Okay, this one. Can you guys tell me which ball looks bigger? Is it the closer one or the farther away one?
Someone in the chat said the back one farther away.
Right. Very good. Okay, so now we're gonna see if it is actually the bigger one or not. So we're gonna circle them. And if we take a close look at the circles, the yellow circles, and we'll actually notice that both of the balls are the same size. So we know, so at least we thought at the very first look, you guys would think that the very further ball is bigger and the closer one is smaller, but really they're the exact same size. So how does this work? Well, it works because of the lines and the surrounding walls that are surrounding the balls. And so this happens a lot in paintings too. So for those of you that love to draw, when you draw lines in this way, what you can do is make things look bigger and smaller despite the fact that they're the exact same size. I hope that made sense. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask. All right, so move on.
All right, so do you think you can judge how straight or how long these lines are? So let's take a moment and look at the first image. So do the lines look straight or do they look like they're kind of on an angle, like diagonal? What do you guys see? Diagonal, slanted lines, okay. So let's take a look at the image on the right. So can you guys rank those arrows on how long you think each line is? Which line do you think is the longest? Which line do you think is the shortest? So they're shortest to longest from the top to the bottom. Okay, the bottom looks the longest. All right, so if we can just move on. So the diagonal lines, those are actually straight if you look at the image underneath. So the way the darker boxes are shaded, those are on an angle. And so it appears that the lines going across, even though they're parallel, they appear to be going on slants. As well with the arrows are all the same length. So our brain, it can also fill in information. So the gray lines on the left are actually horizontal. The true information is going into your eyes. Sorry, next slide.
Okay.
Yeah. So the gray lines are actually horizontal. The true information is going into your eyes, but as the previous examples, your brain interprets it. Our brain can also fill in information. So let's take a look at the grid on the right side. So what do you guys kind of see? Do you see any colors in there, any shapes? Purple? There's a purple circle. Okay. It's like a donut. Okay. Well, there's no blue squares in that grid or purple squares. The lines are just blue in that area. On the right, our brain needs, or sorry, on the left side, my notes are a little mixed up. On the left side, do you guys see anything in those shapes there? Can you make out any like symbols, letters? No? Okay, well, what if we were to put an image over top of it? Just random blocks? Okay, well, if you look at the image now with the black shape covering up, pay attention to the purple. It's the same shapes as before, only there's that black ink covering up. So do you guys see any letters in there? Any symbols? Some letters? Okay, well, if you look closely, you can see the letter J. So our brain needs an object covering up the J's to mentally merge all of those components, all the different purple blocks, into the letter J. So we've learned from experience that objects may continue behind other objects, and the blob over top triggers us to think some of the fragments as continuous objects. So these simple line illusions can be combined into some more complex illusions. So the girls on the side of the room, they're both actually the same person. One is just much farther away. However, your brain doesn't register this distance because the angles in the room appear to be right angles, and the back wall thus appears to be parallel to the front wall, when in reality, the window on the left would be much larger than the window on the right. And so the girl, these two images that have been merged, it's the same girl, but she appears two completely different sizes. So does anybody know what optical illusions are? So I guess the definition is up there, but optical illusions use color, light, and patterns to create images that mislead our brains. The information that we see with our eyes is processed by the brain, and then the brain creates a perception of what we think we see, but that doesn't in fact match the true image. So if you look here, the image on the left, what word do you see? See the word good? Some people see the word evil. Well, if you look at the spacing of the letters on the inside, it looks like, you know, the white letters in between those like black spots spell out the word evil. Meanwhile, the way the like black letters are written, it looks like the word good. So kind of both in there.
Mm-hmm.
So perception is how we interpret what we see through our eyes. Optical illusions occur because our brain is trying to make sense of the world and interpret what we see. So they essentially trick our brains into seeing things that may or may not be real. There's also paradoxes. So paradoxes can be created. So if you look at the elephant, there's some mismatched limbs. In the image on the left, you can see there's some kind of balconies that lead over to kind of just inside of a house. That doesn't make any sense. But stairs can also go on forever, and there's conflicting perspectives in a lot of examples. So for example, I always lie is an example of a paradox, because if the statement that I always lie is true, then it's actually false, because if I'm telling the truth, then I'm not lying. So in the case of optical illusions, paradox illusions are created by objects that are impossible in real life or in 3D. However, these paradox illusions look convincing in 2D drawings. For example, the case of the Penrose triangle, our brain has the need to understand that the edges are next to each other. The edges must join. We can even perceive movement when there's none. So if you take a look at these snakes, they can play tricks on your eyes. Try staring at just one and see if it continues to appear if it's moving. So do you guys see the snakes moving around? Yeah, got some yeses in the chat. If you look directly at the snake that looks like it's moving around though, is it still moving? No? Okay, this is a completely still image. It's just your brain playing some tricks on you because it thinks that, you know, the image, it moves when your head moves. Okay. It thinks that when you're moving your eyes across, that there's actually movement in the image when there's none. So we're going to take a look at a video now, and I want you to pay attention to what direction you think the ballerina is spinning.
I'll just skip ahead a little bit. Oh, sorry.
So which direction do you think the ballerina is spinning? Is she spinning to the left? To the right? Okay, we have a few for left. We have one for right. Oh, she switched. You saw her switch? Okay, the direction that you see her spinning depends on which side of your brain that is most involved in interpreting her image. So your right brain tends to perceive her as spinning clockwise and your left brain as counterclockwise. So the counterclockwise would be, those of you who saw it spinning to the left. So how about color? Oh, sorry, here's just a list of some left brain and right brain functions. They do have very different functions. Sorry, I just see somebody in the chat asked, do all people see the same colors?
For this, or in general, is that a general question?
Do you mind clarifying? Do you mean in general, or do you mean for this next illusion? In general.
In general. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of people that are colorblind, and it just has to do with certain receptors within their eyes. And I know that's a little bit too much detail to go into, but I would say no, not all people see the same colors, but generally most people do. Like I'm sure we can all agree that this text is written in black, and the Science Fundamentals logo is written in orange. So there is some similarity across people, but I'm sure there's some people that can't see certain colors over others. I hope that answers.
Okay, we can move on to the next part of the presentation. So looking at this image, which square appears to be darker? We're looking at the middle square, like in those two images there. The one on the left? Okay, well, the squares are actually the same color. So this is because around the squares, there's obviously the lighter blue and there's the darker blue. So seeing that contrast between how that medium blue color looks up against the light blue as opposed to how it looks up against the dark blue, your brain perceives it to be different colors. So I'm sure some of you may have heard of the dress.
Mm-hmm.
So what color is the dress? This went viral a few years ago, sparked many internet debates. Blue and black. Okay, white and gold. So the dress is in fact actually blue and black. And some people see gold and blue. The first time I saw it, I saw gold and blue.
Did you?
I did, yeah. But anyway, this is because of the lighting in the room. Basically, the contrast between the image, you would expect that this dress is being held up in front of maybe a window, because as you can see, the background behind the dress is a lot brighter. So your brain thinks that that is like the lightest part of the image. But there's actually a lot of light shining on this image to make it look like it's white and gold.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, people who see white and gold assume that the room is being lit with blue light, which is similar to natural light outside. Whereas people who see the blue and black assume that the room is being lit with artificial yellow light. So what else can interfere with color perception? So this is called the stroop effect. If you look at this, so maybe just take a few seconds, try and read out loud the color of the words as fast as you can, but not the word that's written, just the color of the word. How are you folks doing with that? If you want to type in the chat, that's funny. Is anyone having a hard time?
Especially this row, I think, tends to be difficult.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So the color of the word on each list on the right, that can kind of play with your mind a little bit because it starts off with, the right colors, so green and then red, but then it takes a turn and all of a sudden you have to kind of switch the way your mind is working to only pay attention to what the word is written. So even though we can clearly see the colors, it's very difficult to not read the words. For experienced readers, reading is another automatic process that can interfere with tasks that should only require the simple perception. Whereas if you haven't had very much reading experience, it can be a lot easier for you to say the color instead of the word. All right, we can move on to the next one.
Okay.
Okay, so this is a test on intentional blindness. So try to count the number of passes made between the basketball players in this video.
Basketball. How many passes did you count?
Do you want to just pause it? How many did you count?
I'll just stick to the slide.
27?
27, wow.
14? Okay, we can play the rest of the video now.
Okay.
Couldn't keep track, little trouble. This is a very hard test.
The test of selective attention. How many passes did you count? The correct answer is 15 passes. But did you see the gorilla? This video is from research by Daniel Simons and Christopher Chabris and is copyrighted.
Did anybody see the gorilla the first time? No? That's okay. So this is called inattentional blindness. Intentional blindness. So you are selectively choosing to focus your attention on how many passes there were of the basketballs. But you were so focused on that you couldn't notice what else was going on behind the scenes. So we don't perceive much of what we don't pay attention to.
Okay. I think we'll make this our last activity because we are running out of time. So we're going to do a quick activity with words. So I'm going to ask you guys to remember the following words, but do not write them down. So try to memorize or try to remember it in your head when I tell you guys, but do not write it down. Okay, so let's take a look at these words and I'll give you a couple of seconds to remember all of them. Okay, I think that wasn't a lot of time, but I'm sure you saw all of them by now. And now I'm going to ask you guys to write it down on a piece of paper. Just try to see how many you remembered and write down all the names that you can remember from the list. So and please comment in the chat. Did you guys, how many of you saw the word table?
There's a few of them saying yes, they saw it.
Okay. Did you guys see the word rocking?
We have a no in the chat.
No. Okay, well, did you see the word chair?
There's another no in the chat.
Another no in the chat. Okay. Is there anyone else that might have seen the word chair?
Someone else is saying they don't remember.
Don't remember. Okay, fair enough. Oftentimes when we do this kind of word experiment, many people will say that they saw the word chair. But the fact is that there actually wasn't, well, there wasn't actually, the word chair wasn't even on the list. And so the reason people will say chair, and I'll show you the list again. You can see all of this. We saw rocking, and the word table was also there, but there's no chair here. But many people will say that the word chair was on there. I've actually also made this mistake, and that's because our brain, it will construct different memories. It will make false memories just to fit the expectation. So if all of these, I mean, there's a lot of furniture here, and so you would assume that chair would be part of it because it's also a furniture item. So if you'd expected the word chair to be on this list, it's because you wanted it, because it's from the same category, so your brain just automatically responded and thought that that word would be on there. And yeah, that's just our brain trying to make sense of just the things that we see and do in life. It actually helps us do it. So even if you're studying, a lot of the times, if you see, if the things that relate with one another will be easier to remember just because they fit that category. And so now you might think, why are there so many problems with my brain? Well, let me tell you, there aren't. Like I said, these things are really, really helpful. Our brain, the way that it categorizes things and it will relate things from our past experiences and our memories, it actually helps us do a really good job at just being in the world and interacting with people and just doing things around our day, because it's so organized that way that it can, and of course it can trick you sometimes, like in this example that we saw, but it's usually really, really helpful in studying and just doing things around the day and just remembering things. Let's say remembering a grocery list. If there's a couple of fruits that you need to get, it's a lot easier to remember if other items are similar. Yeah, and so you might wonder, well, why do we make mistakes? Like I said, our brain uses these algorithms, basically, is the way that it organizes information and the way that it uses the information. So it's kind of like a shortcut, really. If you think of one thing, any other thing that is related to that, your brain will bring that into your attention, and you might think that that's also part of it, but sometimes it's just a mistake on that your brain is making.
Right, I think we can cut it there. And if anybody has any questions, you can drop it in the chat and we can spend a couple minutes answering those. So someone is asking, will we see more of our videos? So just trying to find the schedule.
There's a couple more demos that will be happening. Unfortunately, this is the only one that myself and Victoria are doing. Can you train your brain to see optical illusions? You can actually. You can train your brain to do a lot of things. I'm sure you've heard the saying, practice makes perfect. So the more you look at optical illusions, the more you look at like weird, tricky things, and the more you can train your brain to look at one thing over the other. the better that you will get at seeing those things.
So sorry, I was just going back to the schedule here, and it looks like we are the last presentation for the Kids at Home project.
Oh, okay. Are there any more questions? No more questions. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, guys. Hope
Thank
you
you.
enjoyed this.
Yeah. All right. I think we're done.